Welcome to the Daily Stoic, the place that brings you inner peace, unlocking your hidden strength, and enhancing your self-worth every day. There is a famous story in Roman history about Fabius Maximus, a great general, not because of his fiery battles, but because he refused to let fear control him. During the war between Rome and Carthage, as Hannibal, one of history's greatest military strategists, marched toward Roman territory, the entire empire was thrown into panic. The Roman generals demanded an immediate counterattack, while the citizens feared that the fall of Rome was imminent. But amidst the chaos, Fabius Maximus chose a different strategy, one that seemed almost cowardly to others. He refused to engage Hannibal directly. He did not rush into a reckless battle. Instead, he waited. He observed. He slowly wore down the enemy, cutting off their supplies, stretching their forces thin, weakening them day by day. The Romans were furious. They called him the delayer and accused him of being a coward. But Fabius understood something that few did: fear makes people blind. It forces them into rash decisions, often leading to disaster. In the end, Hannibal's forces weakened, and Fabius' strategy was recorded in history as a perfect example of patience and control over fear. Had he allowed fear of failure to dictate his actions? Had he succumbed to the panic of those around him, Rome might have fallen. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "Many are harmed not by reality itself, but by their fear of it." We often make things worse simply by the way we think about them. By Seneca, Oedipus, 992. We are not afraid of what happens. We are afraid of what we imagine will happen. Before we begin, make sure that this valuable wisdom spreads to more people through your insight. Each time you hit the subscribe button, like, or comment, you contribute even more value to our community. Now, let's embark on this journey together. Think about the times you've let fear control your life. Have you ever turned down an opportunity because you were afraid of failing? Have you ever delayed an important decision because of the worst-case scenarios playing out in your mind? Fear is not the enemy. How we react to it determines everything. And if we do not control our own minds, fear will do it for us. So today, will you continue to let imagined scenarios dictate your life? Or will you choose to face them like Fabius Maximus, calm, deliberate, and undefeated? Emperor Nero, the infamous Roman emperor known for his cruelty and paranoia, is one of the clearest examples of fear manifesting into reality. He ruled from 54 to 68 AD, a period marked by internal rebellion and political turmoil. But above all, it was Nero's own fear that led to his downfall. He killed his own mother, fearing she would overthrow him. He killed his wife, fearing she was no longer loyal. He ordered the death of his own mentor, Seneca, the very philosopher who had guided him. His reign became one of terror, betrayal, and bloodshed. But ironically, the very thing he feared most, being overthrown, eventually happened. In 68 AD, Nero was abandoned by his own army and forced to take his own life. Alexander the Great was one of history's most brilliant military strategists, but his fear of losing power ultimately destroyed him. He became suspicious of everyone around him. He executed his most loyal generals, believing they might betray him. He pushed his army into unnecessary wars, unable to accept the idea that his conquests might slow down. When a leader fears betrayal, they often act in ways that leave those around them no choice but to betray them. Do you see this happening in modern life? A CEO fears that his employees do not respect him, so he micromanages everything, killing their motivation. A person fears their partner will leave them, so they control them too tightly, which eventually pushes their partner away. An investor fears losing money so much that they never take any risks, and as a result, they never succeed. The truth is we do not fear reality. We fear the stories we create in our own minds. And the more we fear them, the more we make them real. Fear is a masterful illusionist. It does not need to strike us directly, it only needs to whisper its possibilities, and we crumble before the battle even begins. It has no real substance, yet it bends even the strongest minds. We do not suffer from reality itself, but from the distorted images our minds paint of the future. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, saw this truth long before us. He warned, "Many are harmed not by reality itself, but by their fear of it." We often make things worse simply by the way we think about them. And how often has this played out in our own lives? We hesitate before opportunities, not because they are impossible, but because we fear failing. We replay conversations in our minds, not because the words spoken were fatal, but because we imagine their consequences to be greater than they are. We dread what tomorrow might bring, even though it has not yet arrived. We are, in every sense, prisoners of a future that may never come to pass. But what is fear, if not the mind surrendering its own power? If we cannot control the outcome of all things, why should we allow the possibility of failure to dictate our actions? The Roman general Fabius Maximus understood this when he faced Hannibal. The citizens of Rome were paralyzed by fear, urging immediate battle, but Fabius did not allow the terror of defeat to force his hand. He chose patience over panic, wisdom over impulse. And in doing so, he transformed what seemed like certain loss into an eventual victory. So the question remains, when fear rises in you, will you let it rule over your thoughts? Will you let it dictate your decisions? Or will you, like the Stoics before us, stand firm in the face of uncertainty, accepting that fear has only as much power as you give it? To be free, to be truly undefeated, is not to avoid fear, it is to refuse to be its servant. Mastering fear, the Stoic way to control your mind. Fear is not the enemy. It is not something to be erased completely from life, but a fire that must be mastered. If you know how, you can transform it from an obstacle into a powerful ally. The Stoics never denied the existence of fear, they accepted it as an inevitable part of human nature. But they also emphasized one crucial truth: we can choose how we respond to it. Have you ever felt paralyzed by an important decision? Have you worried about the future, feared failure, rejection, or loss? These fears are nothing new, they have existed for thousands of years, tormenting even the greatest minds of history. But instead of allowing fear to control them, the wise philosophers of ancient Rome developed methods to confront it with calmness and strength. Here are the Stoic principles that will help you take control of fear and grow stronger every day. 1. Separate fear. What can you actually control? Every time anxiety arises in your mind, pause. Instead of letting it dominate your emotions, ask yourself a simple question. Is this within my control? Epictetus once said, "Some things are within our control, and some things are not." If it is beyond your control, do not let it trouble your mind. Take a piece of paper and divide it into 2 columns. Columns 1. Write the things you can control. How you respond to a situation. How you prepare for challenges. The choices you make when facing adversity. Columns 2. Write the things you cannot control. What others think of you. The outcome of an exam. Economic downturns. Now, look at your list. Everything on the right side? Let it go. Why should your mind suffer over things beyond your power? True freedom begins when we stop trying to control the uncontrollable and focus only on what we can change. 2. Face the worst. The ancient Romans lived by a simple principle: prepare for the worst, and you will never be caught off guard. Instead of avoiding fear, the Stoics faced it directly. They asked themselves, what is the absolute worst that could happen? If it happens, how will I deal with it? Would I still survive if the worst came true? Marcus Aurelius never expected life to be easy. On the contrary, he prepared for adversity every day. He wrote, "Remind yourself every morning, today, I will encounter arrogance, deceit, greed, jealousy, and selfishness. But they cannot harm me unless I let them." When you accept that the worst outcome is something you can endure, fear loses its power. It is no longer a monster lurking in the dark, but simply a challenge that can be met with preparation and resilience. Think back to past moments of worry. How many times did your worst fear actually happen? And even when it did, was it truly as terrible as you imagined? Fear only controls you when you refuse to confront it. But once you face it, it weakens. 3. Take action instead of worrying. One of the most important Stoic principles is, take action instead of dwelling on fear. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Worrying solves nothing. But action does. If you fear something, take a small step toward facing it today. If you fear failing a project, don't sit there worrying. Create a plan, break it into steps, and start working. If you fear failing an interview, don't let your mind spiral. Prepare thoroughly, practice in front of a mirror, and refine your skills. If you fear rejection, remember that each rejection is just another step toward success. Action not only gives you control over reality, it gives you control over your mind. When you are busy making progress, there is no space left for fear. 4. Cultivate inner peace, ataraxia. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are disturbed by something external, it is not the event itself that troubles you, but your perception of it, and you have the power to change your perception at any moment. You have a choice: will you let external events control your mind? Or will you take control of your own response? When someone insults you, you don't have to react immediately. When bad news arrives, you don't have to panic. When things don't go as planned, you can remain calm and adapt." Inner peace does not mean apathy. It means you master yourself, refusing to let the outside world dictate your inner state. Will you control fear, or let it control you? Fear is not inherently bad. But if you let it control you, it becomes a chain that holds your mind captive, keeping you from opportunities and wasting your energy on things that may never happen. Epictetus once said, "Happiness and freedom begin when we realize we cannot control anything except ourselves." Stop allowing your mind to be manipulated by invisible fears. Focus only on what you can control. Let go of what you cannot change. So next time fear rises within you, what will you do? Will you let it dictate your actions, or will you step past it and become the strongest version of yourself? I'd love to hear about your journey. If you don't know what to say, just type "control fear" to show you made it to the end. Your engagement fuels our community, helping us grow in wisdom, understanding, and, above all, the ability to turn every challenge into an opportunity. Hope to see you in next video. Thank you very much.